again.
Okay, let's talk about this build. This is all SSF. If you're worried that this is like some very big, expensive, fancy build, no, I am playing this in SSF. All self-found gear, probably about 35 hours played or so. We've taken down Zesh. I'm on the hunt to kill Arbiter, but this build, it is super straightforward. It is just like take all the grenades. That is the idea behind this build. I went into this zero planning, literally just I want to do grenades on a Deadeye, and that's what I have done. So I'm not going to go super in depth on everything to do with this. I feel like those videos, those are getting a little bit boring of like me explaining exactly everything, but all the information for this build is up on Mobalytics. I've written everything that will explain it. And if you have any questions, you can ask. However, I will go over at least just the basics of how the build functions. So what we are using primarily is this explosive grenade. This, we fire out a grenade. It has a fairly long detonation timer. However, we can manually detonate it by shooting it with explosive shots. So we shoot it out and then shoot out our explosive grenade, just like that. But it's literally just running, shooting, exploding. We also have some supplementary skill gems. I'm using Flash Grenade. This does a little bit of damage. However, we primarily use it to stun things. So when it explodes, it has a very high stun chance. So this is like a defensive thing. It's really good against bosses. Then Cluster Grenade. This we can shoot out. It shoots out grenades. And then when these explode, it shoots out a whole lot of other grenades. This is not our main damage thing. However, we are using this as like extra damage. That's also really good against bosses. Then also Oil Grenade. This shoots out a grenade that leaves oily ground, which we can then detonate by firing it. This applies fire exposure to enemies, reducing their fire resistance. So if you want that increased damage, you can fire out that Oil Grenade. So when it comes to a boss, you're just going to fire out some oil grenades. You can light it on fire, shoot out all of your little explosive grenades, and then kaboom, like that. One thing that I must discuss is just a gem swap for Pinnacle bosses. You don't need to swap out these gems for just map bosses or normal rares, but we are using Innovate and Ice Bite. Innovate, attacks gain 35% of damage as lightning damage for 5 seconds when killing a shocked enemy with supported skills, and Ice Bite, gain 35% of damage as cold damage for 5 seconds of freezing an enemy with supported skills. These do not proc reliably against bosses, so what I'm using instead is just Long Shot and then Concentrated Effect. As for our auras, I'm using Wind Dancer, Herald of Thunder, Herald of Ash, and Trinity. Trinity is something that we should discuss. On dealing elemental damage with an attack hit, gain 13 resonance of the highest elemental damage type and lose resonance of the other types. So if we hit hardest with fire, we get 13 resonance for that one. If we hit with cold, we gain 13 cold resonance and lose 3 fire and lightning. And then for every 30 resonance we have, we get 6% more elemental damage. This is a ton of damage, but the question is, how do we balance out our elemental damage types? I'm using Painter's Servants. These are the only uniques currently on this version of the build. This converts 33% of our damage into cold, fire, and lightning. So it gives us a very nice balance of fire, cold, and lightning. The rest of the gear is all explained in Mobalytics, but just be using a crossbow, looking for high physical damage, fire damage, lightning damage, cold damage, preferably high physical damage, and looking for this base type. So this is the additional projectile for grenades that is called a bombard crossbow, a cannonade crossbow, and a siege crossbow. Then the rest of the gear is just going to be life and resistances, armor, and evasion. Preferably evasion, but mostly just life, armor, evasion, attributes. And one other thing, we need a fair amount of spirit on this build, so also have a look out for that. The skill tree, I'm using Deadeye. Deadeye is excellent. It has Gathering Winds, gain Tailwind on skill use. Tailwind is a stacking buff which grants 1% increased movement speed, 3% skill speed, and 15% increased evasion rating per stack for 10 seconds, refreshing when you gain another stack. We lose all Tailwind when hit, but this is a very nice offensive, defensive movement speed buff for this character. After that, there's also Wind Ward, 3% less damage taken per Tailwind. So this is giving us a huge amount of evasion rating. When we do get hit, we're taking 30% less damage. Also, we are taking Far Shot. Projectiles deal 0% more hit damage to targets within the first 3.5 meters of their movement, scaling up with distance traveled to reach 20% more after 7 meters. So we're trying to play from distance. We're not up and close. We're playing from distance. Want our projectiles to travel before they explode, and then endless munitions for an additional projectile. This is why I'm going for Deadeye. Super good ascendancy, great all-rounder. What I really want to do on this build is I want to get a Coming Calamity, which I'll probably only get on trade. That will give us all 3 heralds. It'll also allow us to fit in Wind Dancer and a companion and maybe even another aura, but this for now works great. All right, let's run one more map, just unedited. I'm trying something very different with this build guide. Usually PoE build guides, they tend to be very long-winded, hyper in-depth, just information overload. This version, I'm really just trying to show you the very bare basics of the build. All the information is on Mobalytics. You can read it all there. It's probably going to be easier for you to process that information by just reading it. If you have any questions about the build, just ask. You can ask in the comments. You can join the Discord. You can join streams. Other people in the comments also welcome to answer any questions you see. But let me know what you think. Do you prefer build guides that are hyper in-depth, where I explain every single nuance of the build, even if it's a particularly simple build like this, where it's like shoot grenades, kill everything? Or do you prefer just like, here's the build, this is how it plays, here is the guide, go read. Here's the build, very basic, SSF friendly, beginner friendly. Links are in the description for Mobalytics. Don't forget to join the Discord. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitch. You can join the Patreon if you want to support the channel even further. And yeah, if you play this build, let me know what you think. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Stay safe. Okay, bye.